Hello students, welcome to Medical360. Again, the NEET examinations have been announced. 21st June is the examination date. But while we're talking about all those things, we should also be clear whether a similar pattern doesn't emerge when the repeat happens, because remember, the financial incentive of actually a paper leakage is very, very high. And we all know that the epicenter seems to be Sikar or Jajjar or whatever those things. But what I thought was, I'll show you some kind of information and data that exactly tells you what possibly is wrong in Sikar especially. Sikar has about 49 centers, about 27,000 students taking the examination. But what are the results saying? And how do they compare with any other coaching center? Or how do they compare with the entire country? What I explain to you is essentially that part of it. Now, why is it that we discuss Sikar? Sikar we discuss because this is what happened in 24. Even 24, Sikar was in the news for the wrong reasons. But at that point in time, the government of India argued in the Supreme Court that there was no paper leakage or there was no proof that the paper leakage happened. Though the results signified something else. The results of Sikar signal something else. What the government of India did at that point in time is to argue in the Supreme Court that it's only the grace marks that was the problem and not the paper leakage. Whereas the data that was coming out from Sikar was dramatically different. And by the way, the first reports of leakage of the NEET paper also, even in 2024, emerged from Sikar. But we moved on because we wanted to brush the problem under the carpet and ensure that the conduct of the examination was not scrapped. But in 26, we are revisiting exactly the same problem, where even today, as we speak, the first reports emerged from Sikar, where the Rajasthan Special Operations Group actually arrested a bunch of people from Sikar. And it all emerged from a particular hotel in Sikar, is what everyone claims. So what I thought was, we'll put together some information and data for you to actually understand and then decide for yourself what might be wrong here. This is 24 news reports, by the way, where 37 of the top 50 scoring NEET centers are clustered in Rajasthan Sikar district. 37, right? And then super success of Rajkot Sikar centers raises a stink because people know that something has happened here. Paper leak in NEET UG 24 is an undisputed fact, says Supreme Court. So here the Supreme Court agreed that there was an undisputed fact. Later, of course, in the judgment they said there is no paper leak complete proof to actually cancel the examination. NEET results shows top scorers bunched in coaching factories, Sikar rivals quota. Now, the thing that happened in 24 was that Supreme Court actually gave an order to the NTA to put in all information out there in public domain so that people can critically evaluate, analyze, and come back with some kind of information for themselves. In that process, for the first time ever, we actually had data of every student, what their scores were. By the way, while the disclosure was happening, the names of the students were blurred. We only had the application number, the center where they were studying, and the score that they got. So what we now have at that point in time is, for all the 23.33 lakh students that actually took that examination at that point in time, what is the center in which they actually took the examination, what kind of score that they got, and all that data was available for us, which is where we could actually trace back to what essentially happened in Sikar and how it rivals or how it competes or how it actually compares with what happened all over the country is what we're trying to do. Now this is 24. Now this is 25, by the way. This gentleman is arrested. These two are brothers. They're arrested. They're with the Education Minister of Rajasthan. And these two people were arrested in 2026 for paper leakage scam by the CBI. So now we have something saying these two are parents who were arrested for the leakage of NEET paper, and they are found with the politicians of the particular state. And this is the Minister of Education, Government of Rajasthan. While we are talking of them being arrested now in 26, the important thing that we must know is, these are the two brothers, by the way. The important thing that we must know is, these two brothers, their 4 children. The 4 children of these two brothers got government medical seats in 2025. They have 4 children. All the 4 got into a government medical seat in 2025. So 24, we talked of leakage and the scam that happened. Of course, the Supreme Court, adjudicated that there is no paper leakage or there is not enough proof to cancel the examination based on paper leakage. In 25, we have these two people, whose 4 sons got into government medical college because they got a very, very good rank. Both are from Sikar. And in 26, the same guys were arrested for paper leakage. Is there a chain that is happening here? Let's understand that. Now, the brothers Biwal, Rajasthan family that saw 4 kids crack NEET last year, now at center of leaks now. That's what the story is. This is what we are talking about. The Sikar Spark, how a chemistry teacher exposed the 2026 NEET leak. NEET aspirants returning to Sikar find a room, process the paper leak, and start all over again. That's what. So we're talking about Sikar at this point in time. But these two brothers, their 4 children in 2025, and there is no conversation about a paper leak, mind you. All their 4 children got into government college medical seat, and they're from Sikar again. And in 26, what do we find? The same 2 brothers were caught they caught and arrested for paper leak. Now, what is it that we're talking about? So what we did was we actually picked up 10 centers from Sikar and tried to understand what kind of. Remember, I told you earlier, because of Supreme Court, courtesy of the Supreme Court, we now have data at a center level of how many students sat for the examination, what kind of scores each student got, and and we can now compare it with the all India average also. So what we did was we picked up 10 centers from Sikar, and tried to correlate that or compare that with the all India average to understand. Now remember, when I say all India average, it doesn't mean that everyone has to be, there will be a lot of people above the average and a lot of people below the average. But is it very, very dramatically different? And how different is it? Because every center will have students from all over the space, all over Sikar. It is not just from a particular coaching center that they will come in, right? But at the same time, there's a pattern that's emerging when you actually see the results. Let's look at this particular school, which is Tagore PG School College in Sikar. It's a center, examination center. Now, all India, in 2024, remember we are talking of 2024 data. We are talking of 2024 data because that's the only data that we have complete, right? In 2024, they had 4,750 centers. India had 23.33 lakh students is the number of students who took the examination. 164 was the qualifying mark for you to be sitting, applying for any medical college. The number of students who got 700 plus score was 2,321. And the number of students who scored 650 plus, which means that you are likely to get into a government medical college, is 30,204, which is 1.29% of the 23.33 lakh. So the success rate of a student getting into a government medical college is 1.3% over the overall thing. So that is what we're looking at. 1.3% is the national average, right? And the students who scored 600 plus is 81,550 all India. But let's deal with this part of it only because this is where the huge competition is of a student trying to take an examination to get into a government medical college, which is affordable and a very good college too. 1.3%, right? Now look at students who sat in this center, which is Tagore PG College in Sikar. Center is of 1, of course. The number of students who sat in this particular center is 356. The qualifying marks average was 293. You can ignore this for a moment, right? The students who are scoring, more than 700 is 3, which is 0.84%. Here the national average is 0.1, which means we're dealing with 840% success rate. Then students scoring 650 plus, where you get a government medical college, is 12.36%, which is about 1,000% more than the national average. It is 10 times more. The national average is 1.29. Now you can, again I'm repeating, you can always say that, listen, the students here might be performing exceedingly well. But even in quota, even in all the other coaching hubs, this kind of result from particular center doesn't come. We're talking of 12.36% students got 650 plus. 44 of the students got 650 plus and claimed a seat in the government medical college from one single center out of 4750. Is this the only center? And by the way, when you look at 600 plus, where you still have a chance of getting into some college, 21% students got 600 plus. Now let's say, is it only one center? So I told you we looked at 10 centers like this. The next one is Sanskar Balika PG College in Sikar again. Here, the number of students who got 650 plus, while its all India is 1.29, is 8.67%. 37 of the students from 427 students actually got a score of 650 plus and laid a claim in government medical. Move further down, and 20% students got 600 plus, by the way. So we're dealing with, again, here also about 7 times, 7x. And here we're talking of another 7x or 6x. So again, we're dealing with a similar issue that is coming in. The next one, we again go further down to Asha Academy in Sikar. This is another exam center that we have. In this particular place, the number of students who got more than 650 is 30 students out of a total of 355, which is 8.45%. The national average is 1.29%, remember that. So again, we're dealing with 6x, more than 6x, actually it's 6.5x, right? And at 600 plus, it's 19.44 or 20%, which again is 6 times more. Move further down to another center, which is DAV Public Shikshan Sansthan in SR and Sikar. The national average is 1.29%, here it's 9.16%. So we're dealing with 7 times. And here also 19.32%, which again will come back to about 6.5 to 7 times. So what we're looking is a very, very similar pattern across the centers of Sikar. By the way, not all centers. There are centers which have also underperformed. But there are 10-15 colleges there which are examination centers. And why are we talking about this? Last year in 2024, when this entire story broke, there was one story that came out where students are shepherded to a college and a mock test is given. Even this year, the 26th also the same thing happened. The students are shepherded to a college. They are given a mock test where a bunch of 300-400 questions come. And of the 300-400 questions, 140 questions were found to be in the examination when they appeared for it next day morning. That is a claim or the scandal that we're talking about. And a similar allegation came for all of us in 2024 also, where the conversation was how in a bunch of examination centers or in a bunch of colleges or in a bunch of coaching institutions, in the day before the examination, the students were shepherded to a particular mock test. In the mock test, a question paper was given where it had about 300-500 questions. But a bulk of the questions that came the next day morning in the actual examination hall were exactly the same of what happened in the evening before the examination. And these are the centers that possibly are talking, because Tagore School was also discussed at that point in time. So again, the same thing here. Now move further down. We're talking of Pink Pearl Shikshan Sansthan. Same pattern, 1.29%. Here it's 8.17% is the success rate. 41 students out of 502 got 650 plus score. And 97 out of 502 students got 600 plus score. Right. Now move further down. Satyam Public School, Senior Secondary School in Sikar. 7.24% is the thing here, which is 6 times again. And students scoring 600 plus is 19%, which is again 6 times of what you have for the 600 plus score also. Move further down, Sobhashra group of institutions, 502 students appeared for the examination and 46 students got 650 plus, which is 9%, 9.16%. Now you multiply it is 7 times. And 19% students got 600 plus, which means they'll get into through state medical, state counseling, you will get into some of the college there. Move further down, New Central Academy in Chavan in Sikar. Again, 8.83% is the success rate here, which is about 6 times again, right? And here also it's about 19% against 3.5% national average. We're talking of national average, we're not talking of the lowest, mind you. And by the way, let me tell you again, quota and all do about 3 times, 2.5 times, 3 times, not 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. And even in Sikar, many of the other 30 centers that we're not talking about have an average of about 7%, 8%, 3% and all, but not the 6 times, 7 times. They do about 2, 2.5, 3 times. It is good to overperform the national average, because obviously many people would be overperforming. But 2 times, 3 times is. But when you deal with it as 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, that is when it starts creating a problem in your head saying, is everything fair? And what needs to be done is simply investigate the whole thing. Understand whether what has been achieved is fair. By the way, I was just looking at data. The number of students who graduate, pass out of class 12, through CBSE is about 7-10,000 students only from Sikar. Not much. The total population of Sikar is about 30 lakh students. The number of students who are actually in coaching is about 1 lakh students, including defense and everything like that. But the issue is when it comes to NEET, when the financial incentive is so high, and you actually have a bunch of coaching institutions which are claiming the 720 on 720 and those kind of things, then it creates an issue with me. Right. Now move further down, you deal with this particular one. It is Sri Bhagwan Das Todi College. Again, it's a center. 8.38% is the success rate against 1.29. We're dealing with again 7 times, and here also about 18%. Now you move to Sri Arjun Ram Mahavidyalaya Sikar, 8.46%, and we're dealing with again another 7 times. So across what we've taken is 10 centers from Sikar, where everywhere we actually had data which is dramatically higher than this. So now what we've done is we actually captured all the 49 centers where the NEET examination of 2024 was held. We captured the number of students who actually appeared from there, and we also started capturing what kind of scores each of the students did, and we tried to compile that. So for example, you see Bharati with Institute of Engineering, The 957 students who appeared for the examination, the average score for the center is 270, 280, whereas that time the qualification was 164. Remember that, right? And the more than and equal to 164 is 632. So which means about 65% of the students who actually appeared from here actually qualified for the examination, right? The more than 600 is 69 students, more than 625 is 53 students, more than 650 is 34 students, and more than 700 is 2, and there is one with 710 also, right? And the success rate is about 3.5%. More than 650 is 3.5%. Overall, the all India average is 1.29%. Remember that when you deal with that. Now you deal with this whole thing. You actually have 3%, 3.5%, 2.8%, 4.7%, 4.6%, 3.1%, even 6%, and then you deal with 8.6, 8.6. You see further 8.9%, right? And then 7.6%, 7.7, 9.1%, right? 9.2%. 6.5, 7.3, 9.1, and then you also have some with 12% also, as you keep this 12.36%, and this 10%, and so on and so forth. Now this is the problem that we're dealing with, because what we did was we captured every single center, every single student who studied at Sikar, and I told you there were 27,000 plus students who appeared from Sikar in 2024. We now have the data of every single student and what kind of scores that they got. We don't know the names because in that time when the data was released, the names were blurred, but we actually had access to the data of where they appeared, what is the score that they got. And there when we noticed, there are some centers that are outperforming anything else dramatically. Because when you actually have this kind of a data where some is only 3.5 and 2.8%, what you show, like this one is 2.8%, right? The number of students who appeared here was 962, Bharati Vidya School, and only 73 got 600 plus, 56 got 625, and only 27 got 650 plus, right? And that mimics the national average, because national average is 1.29 and these people got 2.7, 2.8%. But within Sikar, there is another school which is getting 5 times more success rate as compared to the other center at 12.36%, whereas this is at 2.8%. So this one is, for example, is 3.1%. Now when you look at this data here very closely, BS Memorial PG College, 705 students who appeared, the average is 282. The number of students who are qualified is 466 on 705. The people who got 650 marks is 46 over 705. Right? But the moment you get down to anything and now you start looking at the average score, you'll realize where the problem is and you'll actually see the percentage also. Here, remember, the national average is about 165. Right? Here we're dealing with 260, 270, 280, which is logical and presentable also. But the moment you come down to some of these things, 383, 376, 376, 377, 365, 381, 384, 383, and when you keep further going down, 385, 383, 386, 373. Now when you deal with this, 390, right, and when you come down to some of these ones, you will certainly be shocked, 379 and all. So what you have now is in very, very massive scale at which these people are underperforming the national average. And that creates a problem for us, because when we look at data where there is such dramatic difference within the centers, mind you, students are coming from all over the place, so it cannot be that a homogeneous group of people are coming to this particular center. That is not the way it is expected, right? But in this particular case, it looks like all best students are coming from certain centers only and performing very well. At least that is what the data suggests. We are not saying that. The data suggests that people in some centers are outperforming the national average, and within the Sikar city also and Sikar town also dramatically differently. Is it that a particular coaching institute students are all appearing for one particular center? Is it that people appearing from one particular school are appearing in one particular center? One doesn't know any of those things. But what we see of this data is, I'm not even comparing with all national average. I'm comparing within Sikar also. There is a massive difference where one center has 2.8% success rate and another center has 12.36% success rate. And that is the problem that we're dealing with. So when we deal with this entire data and move to the next one, this is the national average that we're dealing with, right? Where the all India average is 1.29%, Sikar is 7.48%, despite the fact that a few of them are getting at 3% and 2%, mind you. Otherwise, some of them are doing at 12.36%, 13%. And that is the problem that you need to look at. You zeroed in down on certain centers and try to investigate whether the result that's coming out of those centers is fair and correct. I'm not suggesting that something is wrong, but the fact is that in 2024 there are new leak reports that came from Sikar. In 25 we found 4 people from the same family who's been arrested in 26 for paper leakage to be from Sikar. In 26 we are talking of the news reports of leakage happening from Sikar. We also know that the results are very, very unfavorably favoring a few centers in Sikar at this point in time. That's what we actually proved at this point in time. With that being the case, what is that we must do? We must zero in and try to understand how fair some of these centers were. Is there something going wrong? It is data analysis. NTA can sit with this data and try to analyze. They have the data more than us. They have to look at this whole thing, because the only way to stop it is to ensure that the coaching mafia doesn't have an unfavorable, influence on the result that's coming out. The only way we can actually make NEET being, come back with the integrity of an examination, that the integrity of the examination is not compromised, by ensuring that any data that actually is an outlier is examined for why it was an outlier, especially on the success side of it. And when you do that, you'll stop this problem, because at this point in time, what are we talking of? Sikar students claim 6.8% success rate. Sikar students claim almost 7 to 8% of the total seats that we have in the medical. You have 4,750 centers, 560 cities where the centers were there, and one city claims 7% of the total medical seats that we have in the country. How fair is it for everyone else in the country is what we should be asking for. And from that perspective, I keep saying, look at data, analyze data, understand whether there is any compromise that happened through the data that you actually see. Examine the outliers, because in every system, by the way, outliers are examined for why they're outliers. These are the outliers that we're talking about, and see if there is anything that can be found out that. I just hope NTA, Government of India, Ministry of Education, the CBI, all examine this particular data and see if there is something that's going wrong and start getting to the roots of the problem, then trying to reconduct another examination. Because trust me, you will do another examination, you will finish the whole thing also. But this problem will keep popping up unless we get to the root of the problem. Thank you so much. Namaste.